Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I am Ethan and joined by my partner in crime, Pete. Hey, Pete.
How's it going, buddy?
Everything is great. What do we have for our listeners today?
So today I thought it would be interesting if we chatted, however briefly or longly, about Apple TV's latest movie that just dropped, Ghosted, starring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans.
And Adrian Brody is a bad guy. How fun is that?
Brody, I mean, I didn't do my usual check on IMDb. So when he came on screen, I was like, whoa, okay, this thing's just got at least 20% better.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ghosted, Apple TV Plus. And to set the scene, unlike Netflix, Apple TV Plus has a pretty good track record when it comes to feature films. Let's call this a feature film, right?
Mhm.
With big name cast members. If this had been on Netflix or even Amazon, I would have been a little bit skeptical about it. But the fact that it was on Apple TV Plus gave it a lot of credibility for me. And I was really kind of looking forward to this.
Yeah, you say that, but I will say, I mean, not a million miles away from some of Netflix's recent releases, right? I mean,
yeah.
Obviously the premise is different and the style is different, but in terms of quality, it's not a million miles off from the Adam Project.
Netflixian. Should we give it grades and then go into plot, or do you want to talk about plot and give it grades?
Simple one-line premise. Ana de Armas, who plays a secret agent,
Yep.
who is an excellent agent but unlucky in love. And then you have Chris Evans, who is like this homebody guy.
Farmer, literally a farmer.
Also unlucky in love.
Yes.
They meet. They really get along well with each other.
Yes.
And it looks like she's ghosted him. Hence the
That's
title.
right. Emojis don't count.
Emojis don't
How many
count.
messages did you send?
Yeah.
3 and some emojis, but emojis don't count.
Exactly. They find out that she's not who she says she was, and they get into it, and then it becomes your stereotypical action comedy, romantic thriller kind of show.
So hold on. There's an important, I think, how he found out she was a secret agent is, and this is my first, I think, a plot hole. You tell me if you pick this up. They have a great first date, right? And they kind of make plans for a second date. And then he sends her a lot of text messages and emojis, which count, and she doesn't respond to anything. So he thinks that he's being ghosted, but he remembers that he left his inhaler in her purse, and he has like one of those tracking beacons on his asthma inhaler. And he identifies that his inhaler is with her and she is in London. What do you think of this? I found this to be a massive plot hole.
Plot hole how?
He's such a doofus that, and he loses everything, but obviously not his phone, that he's got like these little tracking devices on all of his wallet, cash box, inhaler. All right, fine. But again, I would think that he would lose his phone as well. And then I guess because they had like this little race up the stairs, and remember he said he was going to take all his stuff out of his pockets, and she said, just put it in my purse, right? So he put the inhaler in her purse. And then apparently when she went on her secret spy mission, she took the same purse, right?
Of course. Very tactical.
Right? And didn't like look to be like, hey, what's in this purse? Okay. So he finds out that she's in London. He has a voucher that's like from spring break when he was in university, uses a voucher to go to London, is going to track her down, which is super, super creepy. And then he is abducted, and I'm not sure why, because this is a little bit sketchy. Why was he abducted? Apparently, people thought he was someone who he wasn't. though he gave no impression that he was this person, right?
I agree. But that's the stereotypical.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then my biggest plot hole is that he is abducted in London, right? They hit him over the top of the head. He's unconscious. They throw him in the back of the van. He wakes up.
I know
Where is
exactly
he?
where you're going to say this.
Where is he?
He is in a fake amalgamation of, let's call it, northwestern India / Pakistan / Afghanistan.
They say the Khyber Pass, right?
I mean, yes, but it's an approximation for that region.
I'm just not clear. After they banged him over the head and put him in a van, they've smuggled him out of the country and then put him in caves in Pakistan, Afghanistan. And then she has tracked him down there.
That's exactly right.
And then he finds out that she's CIA or whatnot.
Exactly.
Okay. I've said my piece. I'm satisfied. I got it off my chest.
All right. So before we break it down, where do
Yeah.
you land on this movie?
It's a mooch. It's a little bit of a mooch plus. It's definitely not a must subscribe. But I think overall, it's a pretty good effort. And apart from my nitpicking on these plot holes and the overall silliness of the movie, I have to say those two have a good rapport between each other. There's something of a semblance of a coherent storyline. Production value is high. He's very likable, and not the superhero. She's reasonably likable. Obviously, a super skilled superhero. It's a pretty good effort. No real issues with it. How about you?
I'm with you. I think it was a fun romp. I think this movie did everything Red Notice tried to do, but wasn't able to do successfully.
Yeah.
So while I gave Red Notice, I can't remember what I gave it. I mean, I know we crapped on it a lot.
We did.
I would say that this is definitely a mooch. I would not subscribe to Apple TV for this movie on its own.
No.
I don't think it's of that level, but I strongly agree with you. If I knew you had an Apple TV password and I didn't, I would gladly call you up and say, hey, listen, I need you to do me a solid. Give me your password so I can watch this movie.
It's absolutely worth 1 hour 30, 1 hour 40 minutes of your time. It is a fun romp. Apart from my two little plot holes, it's intended to be a little bit fun and silly. I felt that Red Notice was trying to be serious, right? Apart from Ryan Reynolds and his Ryan Reynolds snarkiness, Red Notice was trying to be a serious spy movie. This one is, I think, dumbing it down a little bit. And they're not saying, look, we don't really expect you to believe this. We're going to make a good faith effort to make her look like a badass and kick some people's asses, but we're not actually telling you to buy the action. We're telling you to buy the relationship, right?
Yeah, the chemistry between the two of them. So this is I think this is not the second. I think this might be the third time we've seen the two of them on screen together.
Oh, what else?
The one that I can definitively remember is Knives Out.
Yeah.
She was the caretaker and he was the spoiled son. And I think they've been in another movie together, but I might be confusing her and him with... I take that back. This is the second time that I can think of, because she was with Daniel Craig in not just Knives Out, but she was also with him in James Bond. I like the chemistry between the two of them. I thought it was I thought the chemistry between her and him was far better than the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and The Rock, because I also think the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and The Rock could have been the same as the chemistry between The Rock and Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
In the sense that one guy plays the straight-laced guy, one guy plays the comedic guy. In this case, they were both kind of comedic. They were both kind of hapless and terrible in relationships. They were more on a level playing ground outside of their professional capacities. And then within their professional capacities, even though he's calling himself a farmer, he's actually an intellectual / professor type. So it worked. For me, it worked.
I think Chris Evans, I give him a lot of credit for his range, right? Taking Captain America out of it. I mean, as you mentioned, we saw him in
Not Another Teen Movie, where he played that young, hapless spoof of a college jock. We saw him as the spoiled jerk bad guy in Knives Out. The Gray Man, where he plays the really convincing bad guy.
He was maybe the best part of Gray Man, where he played a very, very good villain. Remember,
Sociopath. Yeah.
he had the mustache. He was very, very solid in that. And then I thought he did a pretty good job. And he's also, remember, we saw him in Defending Jacob. Did you ever see Defending
I
Jacob,
never
that
did.
series?
It's on my list. You gave it to me as a high
Yeah.
recommendation. Also an Apple TV Plus show, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
That's an interesting character that he played, because you should watch that. That's a very unique character for him. I didn't like that character, but when you see him in that character, you do not think this is Captain America. Like,
Mhm.
even though he's got the beard, like, he definitely plays like the dad. You do not see Captain America. You don't see a superhero. I thought Chris Evans did a very good job. I thought he was funny. He was definitely not the hero, even though he didn't like ultra diminish himself and seem like this hapless, delicate flower of a man, right? Like Kevin Hart plays that, where he's like, Kevin Hart plays scared, right? I'm afraid of bullets. I'm afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Evans, I thought, played a little bit more straight, like, whoa, this is not my bag. But he wasn't like completely afraid of like touching a gun. He was kind of afraid of shooting the gun, but he wasn't afraid of everything. I thought he did a pretty good job. What do you think of Ana de Armas in here? Strong performance or less strong
No,
performance?
I think strong performance given the kind of movie and role it was. I mean, in terms
Yeah.
of her strongest performance, I still think, I mean, if you're talking about like just a pure spy role, I mean, she was on screen very, very small in the last James Bond movie. I thought she was excellent in that, right? That shootout sequence that she has, I thought was brilliant. But I think her strongest role was in something like Knives Out. I thought she was very convincing in that movie. But in this movie, she did exactly what she was asked to do, which was, look, I need you to be the strong, capable agent against a somewhat bumbling, kind of helpless Chris Evans. And I think she did
Yeah.
that perfectly well.
What was the movie that she was in recently with Batman? Is that Deep Water? That was Deep Water. Did you ever see Deep Water?
No. Is that the one where he wears a white suit with a Panama hat?
No, that's Runner Runner.
No, that's the Justin Timberlake movie. He wears a white
Yeah.
suit with another one.
Yeah.
No.
He's the boss of Justin Timberlake in Runner Runner.
Yeah.
Go see Deep Water. Deep Water is highly disturbing. Highly disturbing. But she's in there and she plays.
Oh, I do. I remember the trailer
Yeah.
and I got turned off by the trailer because of
Yeah.
what it was going to be. I knew exactly
Yeah.
that this wasn't going to be for me.
She plays a very, very fetching character in that. So I thought she's okay as a spy. I think she brings physicality to the role. I don't think anyone doesn't believe that she would be able to do her own stunts or to, like fight or kick or shoot a gun. I think she does a very good job at that. I thought she was fine. I thought that also she was trying to break out a little bit. Like she wore a lot of sweaters and stuff in like the farmer's market scene, where I think she was also trying to position herself as kind of the girl next door and rom-com style.
Right.
This is a perfectly decent movie. Could it be improved?
I mean, look, whenever you're inherently at a mooch, of course, you could theoretically improve it.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that some movies are made for a specific purpose. And if you look at this movie, I think it kind of is fit for purpose, right? You're looking at a movie that's not maybe got a huge $100 million budget, that's got some great fun action sequences. And I do mean fun, like the fight scenes in the bus. I thought that was great. Or the revolving restaurant at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did you think of the ultimate scene, the revolving restaurant? Cool?
A bit ridiculous that it would ever get that fast, that they were using centrifugal force. But of course, that realism isn't the point in a movie like this, right? When you're chasing after a MacGuffin, it's more about the fun. Between the two end sequences, would I rather have been in a revolving restaurant or being chased in a 100-year-old Nazi-era Mercedes-Benz in a cave system in Argentina? Clearly, the revolving restaurant was more fun. I like that dynamic. And I think it also helped that Adrian Brody was a part of that sequence. I think that Adrian Brody...
He is so solid, he was so solid.
Good.
Even his name, Levesque.
I saw Adrian Brody for the first time as a bad guy, even though it was a comedic bad guy in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh yeah.
And he was so funny in that movie that I was like, yeah, man, if you are looking for a comedic foil as a bad guy, this is the guy for you. He was so good. Just the right blend of funny and also menace.
Yeah.
I liked him. I think he loved that sequence. I think he liked chewing the scenery as a bad guy. So I enjoyed that.
I mean, it makes me want to remember the last time I think I saw Adrian Brody was in Winning Time about the Lakers, right? He plays Pat Riley.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think I've seen him in anything since
Unless he was in the last Wes Anderson movie, but I can't remember.
The French Dispatch. Is he going to be in the next Wes Anderson
I'm
movie?
sure he is. Asteroid City, I'm sure he is. I don't remember seeing him in the trailer, but
Yeah.
he's a Wes Anderson guy. So I wouldn't expect him to not be in the movie.
Speaking of which, remember Ryan Reynolds made a terrible cameo in this movie. He was an ex-boyfriend of Ana de Armas, remember?
Oh, that's
because
exactly
they're making fun. They're making fun of like all her boyfriends like lose a body part.
That's exactly right. Because he's got the eye patch on in the restaurant. Yeah.
But I thought he also lost his dick.
He did. He pointed
Right?
that out as well. He's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm still, in fact, that's made me a better man now. So, yeah.
Do you think that was a necessary cameo? I don't think that really added much, right?
It didn't add much, but it's, again, this is what I mean by
Ryan Reynolds doing Ryan Reynolds-y things, right?
and this is kind of appropriate for Netflix in the sense
Yeah.
that think of all of those movies where everyone has made a cameo in everyone else's movie. Like even in that
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw,
Yeah.
he makes
Yeah.
a cameo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we saw Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, both of the co-stars from Captain America in here.
I thought Anthony Mackie was so funny. Yeah.
I thought that was
Sebastian Stan as
incredibly
well.
funny. And I
Yeah.
love that the running gag was like, you both need to get a room before the assassin gets assassinated.
Yeah.
This is what I mean is I think that unlike Red Notice or maybe unlike other movies, this movie knew that what this movie was trying to be, which was we're
Yeah.
not trying to be serious. We're trying to be funny. This
Yeah.
is a ridiculous situation that would never happen. This is,
Yeah.
and let's play off of that. Let's just, gone are those days where people try to make movies that are just pure entertainment for 90 minutes that are quick and easy. And this was refreshing in that sense. They weren't trying to build a world. They weren't trying to frame it as this is going to be part one of 3 movies, 5 movies, 10 movies. This is just a one and done.
Is it?
Well, maybe. What I'm saying is that even if they
Yeah.
don't make this a franchise, they put it all out on the field.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly right. I mean, this reminds me of like the old popcorn munching, date night movies. This is a romance comedy primarily with enough action to appeal to a male audience, with likable characters on both sides, a few key cameos, a noticeable, like villain. I think that this could easily be a sequel where it's Ghosted 2 and they team up to try to get something together, right?
Maybe, but that's kind of like, yeah, I mean, they alluded to it in the end scene, right? Where he's kind of totally okay with the fact that there's a guy in the trunk and he kind of plays off it. Yeah.
So good effort, I think, overall by Apple TV Plus, right? I mean, it was nice to see there's not a whole lot of feature films. I mean, we've seen Sharper, we saw Tetris, but apart from that, Apple TV Plus is really known for their television series, not so much their feature films.
More importantly, the feature films that we do see tend to be a lot more serious. This is just like a straight action romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's not like, Tom Hanks did a bunch of these deep thought movies.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that. It's a very light-hearted film, which is rare for Apple TV because most of Apple TV's programming, as you rightly said, is a little deeper than this. And I don't mean to say that this is a shallow movie, but it kind of is.
It is. It had, I think, more action than I was expecting it to have. Like the action scenes were a little bit more robust than I was actually expecting. Like that bus scene is not I mean, I don't know if that was an expensive scene, but from a stunt perspective, there was a lot that went into that scene. The same thing with the revolving restaurant. There's a lot that went into that scene. You know, kind of the scene when they were in Morocco when they had all those like bounty hunters after them, right? There was a lot that went into those scenes. So from Apple, I think that they didn't have anything like on the Eiffel Tower, like that dramatic. But, they still had some scenes that may have been in all three of those scenes when you think about the production value. One, the Khyber Pass, that could have been just like any mountainside. The one in Morocco was just anything dark at night. They just put up a few tents. And the one in the revolving restaurant was just like a purpose-built set, that just like showed like nighttime outside, right? So all three of those could have been relatively inexpensively made. Those are kind of their three set pieces, I think, that the majority of the action, revolved around.
I think the projected budget, and of course these things aren't confirmed, is only $40 million.
Yeah, that's not bad for Apple TV Plus. I would tell them to make more of these.
Exactly.
That budget.
At $40 million, I would much prefer, instead of Amazon spending $300 million on one series of Citadel, or $750 million on 8 episodes of Lord of the Rings, make 10 of these movies. Make 20 of these movies.
You haven't even seen Citadel yet, and already you're lumping it into that category.
Well, I am only on the basis of a budget. I mean, come on, $300 million for 8 episodes or 10 episodes? My God, even if it were 22 episodes, that is absurd for a TV series.
It's House of Dragononian, right?
Yeah, and at least House of Dragononian can say, hey, we were HBO's top-rated TV series for 8 seasons, and we started that up again.
Yeah, there's something to be said for starting with something a little bit small and concise and getting a whole lot of momentum around it and then building up. Game of Thrones, for example, did not start off at $50 million an episode. It got expensive because the audience demanded more and more. The cast and crew demanded more and more. If you start at 50 million an episode, if you're wildly popular for 4 years, you're going to be at 100 million an episode soon, right? Yeah. And you cannot possibly justify those numbers to have a series at such a cost. And again, the money is not necessarily creating something that's better. I mean, I looked at the things that we've watched recently. What have we watched? Shantaram. I watched Catch 22. We watched The Diplomat. None of those are wildly expensive. They're still properly produced shows, but those have room to grow. And again, if you're really trying to build a universe, I would start a little bit slow and build your way up rather than throwing all the money at the problem year one and find out that you just cannot keep up with the expectations then for another, 3, 4, 5, 8 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think the reality is that when it comes to entertainment, there are definitely diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith, for example, is one of the few directors I can think of off the top of my head who's been very clear about that from the beginning. He said, listen, if I can make a movie for $1 million, I don't want a budget of 10, because what am I going to do with that extra $9 million? I'm going to blow it, and I'm not going to get any added value for it. And ultimately, my movies aren't making $1 billion in the box office. I can't justify that to not just myself, but to the investors of the movie. And I think most people don't think like that, right? And with all due respect to the Russo brothers, I'm very happy they're the first ones to make $2 billion movies, and good for them. They deserve it. They can ask for all the money in the world, and most people will give it to them because their track record is so successful within the MCU.
What do I know from the Russo brothers?
Captain America 2, they did Captain America 3, the last 2 Avengers movies, and that was within the MCU. Then they did The Gray Man, then they're the ones behind Citadel.
Oh, Gray Man is terrible.
And before that, they were the ones who were, they had done a few episodes of Community. Like, they've got a good following. They've got a good reputation, don't get me wrong. But, my feeling is that if you're a director, if you're a producer, you have the burden of responsibility of being let's say, fiduciarily responsible, right? Is $300 million from Amazon justifiable for Citadel? I personally don't think so.
Wait until you watch the first 2 episodes. We'll do a breakdown and you tell me. Spoiler alert, in a way. I've watched the first 1.5 episodes of Citadel and I've got my very, very strong opinions. I want you to watch them because I want to talk it through with you. And I think that should be a watch party show because it's on Amazon. I think we should do our weekly Friday watch party for that.
I mean, did they release all the episodes in one go or is it every week?
I don't know. So that is Ghosted, Apple TV Plus.
For our regular listeners, you'll notice that we haven't really said too much about it. There are definitely some plot holes in here, but I think this movie is incredibly inoffensive. And again, I know that sounds bad, but that's actually a positive in these days, when you have a lot of criticisms to make about shows. It ticks all the right boxes. It's a light entertainment program. You're not going to come out of it, having either an existential crisis or have a deeper understanding of the world around you. None of that. This is really one of those few rare movies where you can kind of check your brain at the door, watch it for 90 minutes, 2 hours, however long it is, have a lot of laughs, enjoy the action sequences, which are pretty good, come out of it and say, you know what? That was 2 hours well spent. I'm glad I saw them.
Can't say that all the time.
No, not at all.
Ghosted, Apple TV Plus. We both give it a mooch. Ana de Armas, Chris Evans, a very funny Adrian Brody as Levesque, and a host of other people. I mean, it's actually very, very well cast, as you would expect on Apple TV Plus, right?
As you'd expect, exactly. Stay tuned. We've got a surprise interview coming up. We won't say who it is.
No.
We're not going to say who it is. We're going to shadow drop this for you guys, but just stay tuned. It is, I'm super pumped and I'm super excited.
I'm super pumped.
Yes. Just listen out for it. I think you guys are all going to be very happy.
Wow. For a change, we have not given a spoiler away.
Yeah.
That's new for us.
Yeah.
We've remained true. All right. Pete, thank you for your time. Listeners, thank you for your time. You know how to reach out to us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. And of course, we love email. aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com.
That's right. Or at FNS Podcast on Twitter. And of course, we'll always appreciate if you like this video and leave a comment below. Those help us out greatly.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone. We wish you a lovely week ahead.
Thanks, Ethan.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.